Okay, we're going to continue our discussion on decimals. This is going to be decimals part 2. And we're going to talk about rounding. That's where we left off. So when we round, we have to consider the place value. I actually got an F on a rounding test once when I was in 6th grade because I didn't pay attention to the place value. So that's what I learned from that experience, is that you have to look and see. This number could be a lot of different things depending on where we round it to. And so we don't just round willy-nilly. I don't just say 13. I mean, if I estimate, I could do that. But right now, I have to, when people say round, they have to tell you, well, what place value am I rounding to? Let's round to the tens place, tens. So that is actually asking me, is 13.401935. Okay, I didn't read that using place value. But is that closer to 10 or is it closer to 20? This number here, 13.4 and some change. Is it closer to 10 or is it closer to 20? So I would round it because the 3 is below 5. When we go 5 and above, we round up. When we look at the 3, which is in the ones place, and the 3 tells us that 13 is closer to 10 than it is to 20. So we would round, see how it's in between? Round down. When it's 5 or above, we round up. When it's 4 or below, we round down. So this gets rounded. We would say this is approximately 10 if we round it to the tens place. And this curly wavy equal sign means approximate. Okay, what if I wanted to round this number to the ones? Round to the ones place. So since we look at the tenths, this is 4 or below, or 4 or below. So is this closer to 13.4? Is 13.4? Is it closer to? Because I'm leaving out the rest here. Is this closer? I only care about the 4. The 4 tells me either to round up or down. Is this closer to 13 or closer to 14? Yeah. So we say that 13.401935 is approximately 13. It's rounded to the ones place. Now what about decimals? So what if I wanted to round to the, let's actually round to the 1, 2, 3, the thousandths, because I haven't done any that round up. So the 1 is in the thousandths place. We look next door to the 9, and the 9 tells us to round up. So this would become 13.402. Does everybody see why I rounded the 2 up? And I leave off the rest. Okay, you're with me on the rounding? Any other questions you want to go over on rounding? So it matters the place value. We could either get 10, 13.4, or 13.402, depending on how exact we want our answer to be. Okay, let's talk about adding and subtracting. Adding and subtracting decimals. Okay. With adding, we want to always line up the decimal so that we're adding the same place value. If there isn't a number in that same place value, you can always put in a 0, right? Zeros after the decimal or after the numbers are actually fine. So we want to always add the same place value. So if I add these two numbers together, I'm just going to start from the end. 5 plus 0 is 5, 1 plus 0 is 1, 0 plus 0, and then 3 plus 4 is 7. What if I need to borrow? Okay, so let's do another subtraction one. Let's have 3.82 minus 1.565. So I first start by lining up the decimal so that all my place values are lined up. Now I'm subtracting. I know I have more money than I'm subtracting away. What do I have to put here in order to have a place value in the same place as the 5? I have to put a 0 here. Now, what do I do when I subtract? I'm trying to take away 5 from nothing. I have to borrow. I go next door, I say, hey 2, can I borrow a 10? And once I give that one digit to that 0, that becomes 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. Now I want to take 6 away from 1. Do I have enough? So I have to borrow again. I'm going to go to the 8, borrow 10, so I make the 8 into a 7. I give 1 to the other one, and I have 11. 11 minus 6 is 5, right? 7 minus 5 is 2. And put my decimal down. 3 minus 1 is 2. Okay, and you can confirm and check that on your calculator as well. But this is basically how we add and subtract. Now let's talk about multiplying and dividing. Multiplying and dividing decimals. Okay, so if I multiply, now what is half of 50 cents? Does anybody know? 25 cents. You already knew that, okay? Half of 50 cents. So 50 cents is 0.5, 0.5 times 0.5. When we multiply decimals, we stack up our decimals. It doesn't actually matter where the place values don't have to line up here. But we're just going to multiply like regular. So 5 times 5 is 25. I don't have to do 5 times 0 because that's 0, isn't it? Or do I have to do a whole line of 0 times 5? Not really. Okay, now since I had 2 decimals in my problem, I start at the end, I move over 2 decimals. So I have 0.25. You just said half of 50 cents is 25 cents, right? So you count up the number of decimal places you have. That's the number that you have to have in your answer. That's also because if you think about it like this, okay, let's do an easier one. Let's say we have 11 cents times, well, we could just do times 2. What's 11 cents times 2 if I have 11 cents doubled? 22. See how in my problem I have 2 decimals? Let's say we were going to do 11 cents times 3 cents, 0.03. 0.03. Are you guys with me? It's 3 times 11. Now, how many decimals do I have? How many decimal places do I have total in my problem? In my multiplication, I have 2 here and 2 here. So I start from the end. I move 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places. Now, to prove that, we already know how to multiply fractions, right? So 11.11 or 11 hundredths, how do I write that as a fraction? 11 over 100 times, what is 3 hundredths? How do I write that as a fraction? 3 over, it's in, sorry, there's 2 decimal places, so that's 100. And you notice 11 times 3 is 100 times 100 is? Is this the same thing? 33 10,000ths, 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places, 33 10,000ths, okay? Now, what makes our decimal system actually so awesome, our place value system, is because if I multiply or divide by really big powers of 10, let's say I multiply 5.132 times 10 to the 3rd power. Okay, that's actually basically the same thing as times 1,000. What's 5 times 1,000? 5 times 1,000 would be 5,000. Notice because 1,000, I have 3 zeros, I'm putting the 3 zeros on the end, but that's actually the same thing as if I move the decimal over 1, 2, 3 on 5.00, right? So if I multiply 5.132 by 1,000, I'm actually going to move the decimal over 1, 2, 3 places. 5,132 when you multiply by a decimal, yeah? What if I were dividing 5,132 divided by 1,000, or 10 to the third power? What would I get? When I divide by a power of 10, our place value, it's telling me, okay, if I have 5,132 and I divide it by 1,000 people, how much does each person get? We're going to basically move the decimal back over. When we divide, we move the decimal is here. We move it back over 3 places. 5.132. Okay? Let's see how you guys are doing on the activity, and then we'll see if there's any more that we want to go over in the next video.